Right now, this second, there are at least 35 Predator drones in the skies over Iraq and Afghanistan. In America, living insects are being combined with machines for military use. And around the world, robot prototypes exist that are mobile, armed, and operate without human control.
What we're experiencing right now is a robots revolution. We're living through the end of humankind's 5,000-year-old monopoly on the fighting of war.
This is not a movie. This is happening here, now. We interviewed Peter Singer, author of Wired for War, former defence policy advisor to Barack Obama.
Robots are playing a much greater role in war today than I think many people know about. U.S. military forces went into Iraq with a handful of drones, pilotless planes, UAVs. We now have over 7,000 in the U.S. military inventory. We have things like the Global Hawk, it's a plane that can take off on its own, land on its own, carry its mission out on its own.
Today, the military in several nations are working on concepts for completely autonomous strike fighters. There are even plans for mothership drones that can stay in the air for months or even years. Most of these aircraft are operated worldwide via satellite from US Air Force caravans in Las Vegas, Nevada. The total number of those killed by them, enemy or otherwise, is unknown. We are seeing a fundamental shift in the way we fight wars.
To go to war for the last 5,000 years has really meant the same essential thing. At its most basic level, meant to go to a place of such danger you might never come home again, until today. And I remember meeting with a Predator pilot, and he talks about his experience of fighting insurgents in Iraq while never leaving Nevada. And he says, you are going to war for 12 hours. You're putting missiles on targets, you're killing enemy combatants. And then you get back in the car, and within 20 minutes, you're sitting at the dinner table talking to your kids about their homework.
And the robot revolution is not confined to the skies. Robot vehicles exist that can drive completely autonomously. This is the Terramax.
And with vehicles like the Terramax, they've been able to drive on their own through very complex terrain. But also, they had to follow the equivalent of traffic laws, even though there was no human inside of them. And so the point here is that we're seeing their sophistication and their autonomy grow with each new generation.
And this is Big Dog, a robot that maintains its balance even when under attack.
Big Dog is a robot made by a company called Boston Dynamics that is designed to replace the pack mule. And it's got some pretty amazing capabilities. It has legs that continually orient themselves to the ground.
Other robots can power themselves, like EATR, E-A-T-R.
The robot would be able to go around, scavenge up things on its own to burn, which would then power itself. I remember talking with one of the scientists who was one of the developers of this concept. And he said, yeah, you know, it'll be able to scavenge anything you might find on a battlefield. You know, things like broken up trees, broken furniture, dead bodies, stuff like that. The point is here, anything that can burn, that's a really wide definition.
And the robot revolution goes further. Next week, we look at developments in artificial intelligence, military cyborgs that already exist, and robotic prototypes that are being weaponized.
A robot looks at an 80-year-old grandmother in her wheelchair the exact same way it looks at a T-80 tank. They're both just zeros and ones in the programming language.
The future of war, happening now. Part 2 of Robot Wars next week on Hungry Beast. This Beetle is the first live, working, real-life military cyborg. Electrodes have been grafted to its brain and wings, allowing it to be controlled remotely. Just last week, experts warned that drones such as these could be used to deliver chemical or biological weapons. This is Peter Singer, author of Wired for War and former defence policy advisor to Barack Obama.
Integrating this into animals in certain weird and wild and somewhat scary ways as control systems, using implants steer where things like insects are going. Sounds like really crazy, weird science fiction, but again, this is the kind of technology we're working on right now.
Today, military robotics covers everything from insects that are combined with machines to killing machines that hover like insects, such as the recently discontinued multiple kill vehicle.
The Missile Defense Agency's multiple kill vehicle. Execute the kill autonomously.
If these cyborgs and machines look like something out of a movie or video game, that's no coincidence.
The impact of science fiction is all over the place on our real-world technologies. Funders get their ideas of what they want to build from science fiction as well. I remember talking with a Marine officer, a U.S. Marine officer, who talked about how he was watching Empire Strikes Back with his son on the weekend, saw a certain technology and said, you know what, that would be really useful in Iraq and Afghanistan.
In one case, the military even asked for a system that looks like the hunter-killer robot from Terminator. And military robots and the entertainment industry don't just share ideas, they share the technology itself. This reconnaissance robot, used by soldiers in Iraq, is actually controlled by a gamepad. And this 6-ton machine gun-equipped truck, nicknamed the Crusher, can be run with an Apple iTouch music player. The crossover between military robotics and popular culture goes further, and often it starts in an unexpected place.
Almost every young graduate student, young professor out there, most of them are taking money from the military for their research, and on things that they'll say, you know what, it has nothing to do with the military at all. I remember a scientist talking about that who the U.S. Navy was funding his baseball playing robot project. It was because the game of baseball involves throwing a ball and being able to predict where the trajectory of it is going to take it. A lot like it'd be really useful to be able to predict where a cannon shell is going to land. The game of baseball, like other games, involves a complex set of rules. And so, of course, if you can program a robot to be able to follow those complex rules, very useful for other games, like the game of war.
In the game of war, serious questions are starting to arise about what we're asking machines to do. This robot sentry gun relies solely on its artificial intelligence to decide who and what to shoot.
There are certain things that machines can already do better than any human. For example, raw calculating power, their ability to do pattern recognition. But then there's other parts of human intelligence that machines can't reach now, and guess what? They may never be able to reach. Being able to figure out when someone's telling a lie, or figure out when someone's happy or sad and how to appropriately respond. The sword system is so accurate that it can turn a machine gun into a sniper rifle. But it can't naturally tell the difference between that apple and a tomato, which any 2-year-old can do. A robot looks at an 80-year-old grandmother in her wheelchair the exact same way it looks at a T-80 tank. They're both just zeros and ones in the programming language.
Increasingly autonomous, powerful, and accurate robots are now being designed to work together in packs.
They're proliferated, they're autonomous, that they operate along what they call a swarm system model. That is, they spread out across the battlefield, but then they find the bad guy and swarm around him, just like bees would, just like a wolf pack operates, those sorts of things.
Within the US military, plans exist to build a, quote, unassailable internet in the sky. One researcher said they should just go ahead and call it Skynet. Next week we ask, what will this mean for us?
It's a technology that offers these incredible new capabilities, but more important is the questions that it forces us to ask. Questions about what's possible, questions about the right and wrong that we didn't have to think about before.
Robot Wars, the final chapter, next week on Hungry Beast. Right now, unmanned aerial drones are in the skies over Iraq and Afghanistan. We have robots that can open fire without human guidance. Some are disturbingly lifelike. Others, like this cyborg beetle, are actually alive. Robots will fight the wars of the future. What does this mean for us? This is the final part of our interview with Peter Singer, author of Wired for War, former advisor to Barack Obama.
When people talk about these technologies in terms of the robots revolution, they need to remember that we're not just talking about an American phenomenon, an American revolution. There are 43 other countries that are building, buying, and using military robotics today. And they range from countries like Great Britain, Australia, Israel, to countries like China, Russia, Iran, Pakistan. And so it's very much a globalizing realm. There's another part of this aspect in terms of the changes of war is what I call the open source revolution. A lot of the technology is commercial. It's off the shelf. It's even do-it-yourself. For example, one of the most widely used drones in Iraq and Afghanistan is what they call the Raven drone. For $1,000 US, you can build your own. And if you can do it, it means there's a wide set of non-state actors that might do so. The war between Israel and Hezbollah. Hezbollah may not be a formal military, may not even be a formal nation state, but it still was able to fly 4 drones at Israel.
The implications for future acts of terrorism are clear.
That is, Al-Qaeda 2.0, they can be more lethal, have greater reach, all those sorts of things.
Having robots fight our future battles will change the way we think about war.
Most of our democracies right now, we don't declare war anymore. And now we have this technology that allows us to carry out acts of force, acts of violence, without sending people into harm's way. We just do it because we view it as costless to us.
Future wars will not only be easier to wage, they will become entertainment.
This technology doesn't just remove the human from risk, it records everything that it sees. We have several thousand video clips of combat footage from Iraq and Afghanistan up on sites like YouTube.com already right now. And so for some people, the ability to download a video clip of combat from Afghanistan is turning this not into information, but turning war into entertainment. And the soldiers, they have a name for these kind of YouTube war clips. They call it war porn.
Most systems currently used in war are operated remotely by humans, but prototypes in development mean this will not always be the case.
There's this idea, there's this phrase that people use again and again and again when you talk to them about military robotics. And they say, man will always be in the loop. But it's absurd. It's proving to be false. Because guess what? We are working on systems right now to take us out of the loop. In the research for my book, I came across 5 different projects on armed autonomous systems, one of which had the actual name, quote, taking man out of the loop. So we say we'll never, ever, ever do it, but yet we come up with very good reasons to, and in fact are doing so right now.
Armed, autonomous robots working together. Is this how Skynet begins?
When people talk about robotics and artificial intelligence in war, it very quickly gets to the question of, when are the metal ones coming for me? When is the Terminator scenario? When's Skynet going to emerge? We're not there yet. We don't have to think about the Terminator for us to say, you know what, it's time for us to start thinking about this. Scientists I met with worried that it was the equivalent of the atomic bomb and that it was an invention that maybe later on we were going to regret making. But the odd thing is, most of the inventors of the first atomic bomb later formed the very first arms control movement to ban the very thing they had invented. And so it's that parallel that I think maybe concerns me the most, that if we look in history, we have this series of experiences of opening up Pandora's box and then going, wow, maybe we should have thought about it a little bit first. Maybe we should have examined the box, understood it. I think my concern is that we are probably going to repeat the mistakes that we've made in past generations.
Over the past 12 months, under the Obama presidency, the use of US drones in places like Pakistan has increased by at least 50%. Robots will fight the wars of the future. How much of a say we want in that future is a question for us now. You can find the full interview with Peter Singer on our website, abc.net.au/hungrybeast.